Hey guys, welcome to another GCSE Maths video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to solve trig problems using the SOHCAHTOA method. I'll run you through the basic principles and formulas involving sine, cos and tan, and I'll take you through some exam style questions as well. So let's start with trigonometry formulas. So the three sides of every right-angled triangle have their own names, which are the hypotenuse, opposite and the adjacent. The hypotenuse is the longest side, which is always opposite the right angle. The opposite is the side opposite the angle being used, which is theta. Finally, the adjacent is the side next to the angle theta. Once we have identified all the sides of a given right-angled triangle, we can use one of three different formulas, including sine, cos, or tan, to work out the value of theta. Firstly, sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Second, cos theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and thirdly, tan theta equals opposite over adjacent. Now, a great way to utilize these formulas is through the use of formula triangles. These are particularly useful when the question asks for a missing side rather than a missing angle, as it allows you to rearrange the equation very easily. For example, if in a question you were given theta and the adjacent, and you needed to find the length of the opposite side, for example, you can use the TOA triangle to rearrange the formula from tan theta equals O over A to O equals tan theta times A. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some practice questions. So when it comes to doing SOHCAHTOA, there are three vital steps. Number one, identify which side is which. So which one's the opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. And once you've done that, step number two is to choose the appropriate formula depending on what sides you were given. So for example, if you're given the opposite and the hypotenuse, you know you have to use the SOH formula because you can find sine theta using the opposite and the hypotenuse. Once you've done that, it will give you an answer and you need to inverse that answer to find the actual value of the angle, and you do that by using sine to the -1, cos to the -1, tan to the -1 on your calculator, and do that by pressing shift and then sine, cos or tan. So question number one, find the angle theta in this triangle to three significant figures. So step number one, we're going to identify which side is which. So the hypotenuse is always the longest side opposite the right angle, so that must be here. Put an H there to show you that. And the adjacent is next to the angle, so that would be here. And the opposite is opposite the angle, so that would be up here, 8 centimeters. So we are given the opposite and the hypotenuse, and we need to work out theta. So we need to choose the appropriate formula, which in this case would be the SOH formula. So now we move on to step number two, choose the right formula. It's going to be sine theta equals O over H, which equals 8 centimeters over 15. Which will give us an answer of, you just plop that straight into your calculator. It equals 0.53, but it's not vital at this stage that you give it as a decimal. We move on to step number three now, find the inverse. So to find the inverse, we do sine to the -1. I'm just going to put 8 over 15 because it's a bit easier. And we put that into our calculator, so you press shift and then sine, and then you put 8 over 15 in the brackets, and equals 32.2309 blah blah blah, but the question wants 3 sig figs, so that equals 32.2 degrees. So this here is 32.2 degrees. So on to question number two. find the angle theta in this triangle to 1 decimal place. So through exactly the same steps again, number 1 is to identify which side is which. The hypotenuse I always find easiest to identify because it's always opposite the right angle and the longest side, so this is the hypotenuse. Opposite is always opposite the angle theta that we're trying to work out, so this would be the opposite, and the adjacent is next to theta, so this would be the adjacent. So we can see we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse, so step number 2 to work out our appropriate formula is going to be CAH, or cos theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse, which equals 10 meters over 12 meters, which equals, if we want to cancel that down, 5 over 6. So step number 3, find the inverse. So it's going to be cos to the minus 1, 5 over 6, and you put that in your calculator. Shift cos gives you cos to the minus 1, 5 over 6, and that gives you an answer of 33.5573 blah blah blah, and the question wants to 1 decimal place, so that equals 33.6 degrees. So this angle here is 33.6 degrees. So moving on to this final question here, it's a bit different because it actually gives us the value of theta and one of the sides, and we're going to have to work out this side. So firstly, step number 1 is still the same, identify which side is which. So opposite the right angle and the longest side is always the hypotenuse, so this is the hypotenuse. And then the opposite is always opposite theta, so 3 centimeters must be the opposite. We have x here, which is next to theta, which is going to be the adjacent. So if we think about this, we need to use the TOA formula because the two sides that are involved in this question are the opposite and the adjacent, even though we're not given the adjacent. So that is tan 60 degrees equals opposite over adjacent, which equals 3 over x. Now also using the formula triangles, which we went over earlier, we know that this is the TOA triangle here. So in order, we want to find the adjacent. The adjacent is going to equal opposite over tan theta. So the adjacent is going to equal 3 tan theta, which is tan 60 degrees, which gives us an answer of, and this question wants an exact value, I think, that gives us a value of root 3. Anyway guys, that brings us to the end of this SOHCAHTOA video. I really hope you found it helpful and you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you later!